Hello everyone, my name is Chris McIntosh. I help teach the capstone courses. Today we're talking about finding literature related to the problem. We are working on the project proposal portion of your capstone. Last time we talked about how to write your problem statement. In this video, we'll talk about how to find relevant literature. Last time we looked at some things to think about when developing a problem statement about the local problem. Now it's time to think and write about the problem in more general terms. Is this a problem in other places, or have projects like yours been done in other places? How are concepts related to your problem defined in the scholarly literature? Who is affected by this problem more broadly? What people and systems? When is it a problem? Have any trends or patterns been identified? Why does it matter? Is there an existing standard or protocol that is not being met or followed? What is the standard? How is it defined? And who publishes and maintains the standard? How does it affect patients or systems? What will happen if this problem is not addressed? Information in this section should expand on what is written in the problem description section and be supported by evidence. You should use proper APA citations and references, so you need to keep track of the literature you find. There are more resources for searching for scholarly and other literature available than ever before. This list is not comprehensive. In fact, it may be out of date as I create these slides. Things seem to be changing so quickly. Since this presentation is focused on a capstone project in manuscript for a master's degree, I would prioritize scholarly sources over popular literature. I'll divide these into more traditional resources and AI-powered resources. Traditional resources include PubMed, Google Scholar, and scholarly databases available at Eccles Health Sciences Library. Some AI or artificial intelligence powered options include Semantic Scholar, Elicit, and Research Rabbit. I'm not going to give a tutorial on how to use each of these resources here. Links to some additional information will be available in Canvas. For new AI-powered options, you can Google for resources about how to use those new tools. That also reminds me, regular search engines like Google and Bing can help you find relevant literature, but I would prioritize scholarly sources over popular ones. Bing is blurring the lines in this list. As of the time I created this presentation, Bing has added AI integration as well. Once you have an idea of what to search for and where to search, you should be taking notes. You should keep note of what databases you search and the search terms. You should keep track of the articles or other literature you intend to read. You should record the sections or passages relevant to your project and paper. You should jot down ideas of what would be good to write. The Capstone Toolkit includes a section for taking notes about your searches, literature, and writing ideas. The Capstone Toolkit is an Excel workbook that has multiple sheets. Tabs for sheets can be seen along the bottom of the window. You can move the visible sheet tabs by clicking the left and right arrows in the bottom left corner of the window. Look through the available sheet tabs until you find the desired sheet and click on the tab. You can use any tool you like to keep notes. I suggest being consistent in where you keep them. Scattered notes are not very helpful when you can't find something. Excel is an excellent option because it's sortable, filterable, and searchable. OneNote is another decent option because it's also searchable. I've included a worksheet in the Capstone Toolkit to keep track of searches you've conducted. I've included a worksheet in the Capstone Toolkit to keep track of articles you find. The headings at the top of the literature sheet follow categories often important in evidence-based practice. We're not quite as concerned with evaluating the strength of evidence as we are with completing the plan for our projects. So it's up to you how much you formally evaluate the strength of evidence for the articles you find. But I strongly recommend you pay special attention to the reference column. Take the time to find or create the proper APA reference when you first find an article you want to consider using in your proposal and paper. Sometimes it's really hard to find an article again if you didn't keep good notes. Don't waste time recording articles in your list that don't look promising. I usually skim the abstract, and if that looks promising, I skim the paper. If I don't see something that catches my eye for what I need, I move on. This process takes some practice. Again, record the proper APA reference while you're searching. It will save you time in the long run, I promise. If this page consists of nothing but APA references in the reference column, that's okay. The main point is to start compiling the reference list. So how do you find the reference? Clicking the site link in Google Scholar brings up citations and links to download for Citation Manager software. Here's a warning. Google Scholar citations do not always follow correct APA format. You need to double check them. Finding the same article in PubMed and clicking the site link there is often the gold standard. You'll see the same reference in PubMed includes the Digital Object Identifier, or DOI, for this reference. You can always create the reference yourself. If you don't have your APA manual with you, you can look up a lot of examples on the APA style blog. I know, I can hear the horrified gasps, but creating your own reference is not that hard once you've done a couple. The writing note sheet is where the real magic happens. When you find something in a literature source that looks relevant to your paper, I suggest you take note of it. Add the citation in the citation column just like you would cite in a paper. That will let you find the correct reference in the literature sheet. You will now have the correct reference and citation format for when you write your paper. Record the page number of the information you think is relevant. It's easier and faster to look it up again if needed. Copy the short passage of text you think is relevant and paste it into the text column. It's nice to see what you thought was interesting without having to go look it up in the article again. Record your thoughts in the notes column. If you're going to paraphrase it in your paper, write the paraphrase right there. Make yourself a note of why you thought this was interesting and how it might be used in your paper. Here's a pro tip. If you think of something that may be useful for your paper, even if it's not related to this source, jot it down in the notes section in a new row. Keeping track of these thoughts when you have them will make writing easier later. It's easy to forget some good ideas if you don't write them down. Add what section you're working on in the paper section column. Here's another hint. I've created the proposal sections to match the manuscript template sections. When it comes time to write your paper, you'll be able to sort these notes and group them into the appropriate sections quickly. You don't have to use this method. Feel free to invent your own. This is just what I settled on after a lot of trial and error. Your assignment is to write at least one paragraph regarding available knowledge about your problem. You should cite at least 2 sources in this first assignment and include references in the reference section. Information in this section should expand on what is written in the problem description section and be supported by evidence. Use proper APA citations and references. If you're having trouble writing, just create bullet points that address the questions in the previous slide. Getting something down on paper is better than not writing anything. You will need to continue to add to the available knowledge section. Eventually, you should have 5 to 10 references in this section. I will reiterate the writing tips that I talked about last time. The available knowledge assignment will eventually become the available knowledge section of your project proposal and manuscript. The more writing you can do this semester, the easier next semester will be. Eventually, I will be looking for well-formed paragraphs with topic sentences and supporting statements. One way to check for well-formed paragraphs is to do reverse outlining. I'll reiterate the editing tips. I do recommend that students use Grammarly. ChatGPT is a useful editing tool. You can see some examples of how I've used ChatGPT for some editing tasks on my Reviewing Writing GitHub page. It goes without saying that you alone are responsible for the content of your own paper. Never use anything without reviewing it first. There is a difference between getting help revising content you create and having another source create content for you. Professional editing services can be expensive, so it's good to use the free sources available to you. That's all we'll do in this video. There was more to come. And there's the references for this presentation.